Welcome, everyone, to Mythstorie, a podcast about myths and history. I am one of your hosts, Bryant, with my permanent guest, Cammy. Hey, Cammy.
Hey, Bryant.
Baba Cammy. You're not a
Baba
grandma, are
Bryant.
you?
No. Are you?
I don't think I know. Artemis is fixed, so I'm
Okay,
good.
cool.
Yep. Is she behind me? No, she's not. Well, that's what we're talking about. Not my cat, but old witches in Slavic country here on Mythstorie. So, as you know, Cammy will have a story, and I will lead a discussion. This is a fun one. I had heard of it first from John Wick. Do you know what your first hearing of Baba Yaga was?
I don't, but Candace, she runs Walmart, and there are several of the vendors that use art that is like
Pet prey to
inspired
Baba
by
Yaga. No, yeah.
Baba Yaga. So I know I've known about it at least like a year or two, maybe longer though. I don't know.
yeah. I have to look up when the first John Wick film was, which is a few
I
years ago, like
definitely okay,
2017 or
so I
something.
definitely heard that term because I did see John Wick,
Oh,
but
okay.
I
It's
don't
just so
remember.
synonymous now, and it's weird because of how important it is. Well, we'll get into that discussion later. You're
Sure.
jumping the gun. I am too. Cammy, why don't you hit us with that wonderful story?
Okay, sounds good. Wow, you really want to get into it.
Do it.
So I use storyberries.com, The Baba Yaga by Catherine Pyle, and then worldhistory.org, the article on Baba Yaga. And that was some really good information. It had several stories actually in that one, but this
Mm.
seemed a little bit better for our format. It is said that in the woods, the devil, looking for the seed of wickedness, concocted a terrible substance in a steaming black cauldron. He took the murdered bodies of 12 evil women and boiled them together. Then he spat over the mixture, and out came the purest evil, perfect in her soullessness, Baba Yaga. And today, deep within that same black wood, she still resides. Her house she made of fallen trees, but the structure is peculiar and queer, for though it is shaped very much like any other house, it stands on giant chicken legs. Just at the edge of the woods, there was a stream, and just beyond that, a town. And in that town lived a man and wife who could not bear a child. The wife so wanted a little boy that she bundled sticks together and rocked the swaddled mass until her husband came home. Every day. With all that rocking, one day the bundle started to coo and cry, and the woman was happy to see that in the cradle was an actual boy. She named him Peter and brought him up as her son. As he grew, Peter became very fond of fishing, and he would often go to the lake by himself. One day he was fishing when he heard a woman calling for him to come to her. He thought for a moment it must be his mother, but he did not recognize the voice. Realizing it had to be the witch of the woods, he paddled away from the sound quickly and did not return to the lake for the whole day. The witch then realized her mistake, so she went to a blacksmith and asked for a pretty voice. He made one for her, and the next day she waited for Peter again. He fell for it this time, for she sounded so much like his mother. Baba Yaga kidnapped him and took him to her hut. When Peter did not return for dinner, his mother asked her servant to go fetch him from the lake. But when she found he was not there, the girl knew Baba Yaga had him. So she went back to her employer and told her she would fetch the boy, but she needed to take dinner with her in case it took her too long to find the house. But when she found it so quick, but she found the house very quickly and put the bread in her pocket. Then she knocked, and Baba Yaga answered, and the girl said she was looking to earn some money for doing chores. Baba Yaga, already excited to see another child she could eat, agreed to give her money. So the girl set out around the house cleaning while Baba Yaga went to fetch water. The little cat that Baba Yaga kept as a pet came up to the girl and begged for food, and so she gave him the bread and dried herring in her pocket. For Baba Yaga never fed him anything but bits of bone. He then told the girl where Peter was and helped her escape with the boy. He too escaped into the woods, and to this day Baba Yaga rides on her pestle throughout the land looking for her lost meal.
Very good. Yeah, you think broomstick, and no, mortar and pestle, dummy. It's that's her mode of transportation, is a bowl with a she like she like canoes it with the
Right.
pestle, and she's like sitting in the mortar. It's really funny. Yeah, this is Baba Yaga. Baba Yaga. My first thing, I have key features: insanely ugly. That's what I put. Because
She's like the classic witch with the wart on her nose.
yes, like oh, she is everything that depicts her is like rough. There's a lot of these woodcuts that we have from I think it's the 18th century, and yeah, woodblock prints from the late 17th and early 18th century. Some of the first like just pictures of her, images of her that we have, and yeah, she's just man, those woodblock dudes, they put some time and effort in to make her look horrible. She is. She's. This is the quintessential scare your kids from going into the woods. This is a unanimous folktale for many Slavic countries, primarily Russia, but it's of Slavic folklore. So, oh man, I didn't really put a good like area of what kind of that constitutes. But that's like Romania, God, everywhere,
Poland,
like
Russia,
yeah,
the Ukraine.
lots of forests, very scary things that will take you out, especially in the Middle Ages and just after. We don't know exactly how old she is, but it makes me think of the fairy, the fae of the like of English and Anglo and British folklore. They were the explanation as to why your kids disappeared and or why something terrible happened, why your kids were playing and they didn't come back home, or you found their clothing or their hand or something. And that was it was the fairies. The fairies got them, and that's what Baba Yaga was. They gave her a name. Also reminds me of like how the name Jack was used as like Spring Hill Jack, the Jack the Ripper, the Jack will kind of get you kind of stuff of the industrial era England.
One thing that I want to point out, and actually now that you're mentioning Jack, is
Mm-hmm.
this had Peter in it, and that is one of the like Germanic
Mm-hmm.
and Russian and all of those places. That is sort of the Jack of their
Oh,
area.
sure. Yeah, like that kind of catch-all name. I like that a
Yeah.
lot. Um, yeah, that's a really good point. I did notice that. Yeah, that name. So there's some really interesting things here, though. So Baba Yaga is basically the template witch for what we have from like Disney stuff and modern stuff today. The ugly wart on the nose kind of thing, like you said. But she had some interesting things. The big thing is that she has a hut in the woods and it's mobile and it has hen legs or chicken legs that hold it up, and it also she commonly has like a bone fence, um, but she flies around. So she's got a mobile house. She flies around. She's a very can-do woman. And sometimes the stories, it's a trio of witches that made me like think straight up of Macbeth.
Sure.
Literally like boil and toil, trouble, cauldron, bubble stuff, like 100% that. And that was, a couple hundred years before we're kind of seeing the first top mentioning of her in literature and things like that. Um, Wikipedia mentions, and I use Wikipedia and Rushapedia.rt.com. Thank you very much. And they mention, as far as like the stories go, she's either a donor or a villain, and or maybe super altogether ambiguous. So sometimes she's just straight up the villain. Sometimes she's kind of like the inspirational donor that kind of like you earn this sort of thing, puts you up to the
Mhm.
challenge. So she's not always that bad. And then another great term is that describes her is a phallic mother. Do you know what a phallic mother is, Cammy?
That sounds disgusting. I don't though.
I doesn't it? Yeah, it's like a literary term. The fantasy, or what is it? Phallic. It's like a characteristic. Like there's the way she is. She has that like those virile features, the manliness, the
Oh,
like she
she's just
takes.
masculine? Oh, okay.
Yeah, essentially, yes. But
So she's a masked lesbian is what you're saying.
phallic mother. That's what you can identify as if you need to. Um, But the name is a big part of it too. The etymology, it's a Babel word of babushka, which directly means grandmother in many languages, but that's the straight up way of saying it in Russian. There's different
So
kind of
like
versions of that.
you would say mama or something like that, like baba.
Yeah, mama, baba, and baba is like a Babel word of babushka. Yeah, and it's like babcia in Polish. I'm sure I'm butchering the pronunciations, but it's very similar. These languages are interconnected. Baba by itself kind of informally means grandmother or old woman in many other surrounding Slavic countries. And Baba is also kind of a pejorative of woman. So the second element that I'm going to quote verbatim from Wikipedia here, the element may appear as a means of glossing the second element, Yaga, with a familiar component, or may have also been applied as a means of distinguishing Baba Yaga from like a male counterpart. Remember, I mentioned there's trios, so maybe there was the Baba this, the Baba that, the Baba you, Baba me. So, but it's sort of, I guess, like I imagine the old story if you're in the 14th century in the forests of Poland and you're trying to scare your kids, you're gonna be like, the Baba will get you. You know, the evil old lady will get you. You might not specifically say Baba Yaga, but you might say Baba's, the Baba, the evil Baba's out there.
And then the
But
kids are confused and their grandmother scares them.
yeah, that too. But so the first clear reference is a book, a grammar book that was written in 1755 by Mikhail Lomonosov. Lomonosov. There we go. And it's a grammar book that mentions her twice, as many as lots of other Slavic gods and Slavic tradition is mentioned in this too, connecting their equivalents to Roman mythology. I've mentioned Perun, the thunder god of the Slavic area, for example, and so Baba Yaga is kind of in that same idea. She's not equivalated to anything in the Roman kind of world. She's not deified, but again, think fairy, or spirit, that kind of thing.
They did have like witches though, and they had the Bacchanalia, which
Oh
honestly that's
yeah,
very similar words. But anyway, so they had witches.
I like that. I like that a lot. Um, so some relatives in the area. There's a Jezebaba is a medieval figure specifically of the Western Slavic area who has a lot of similar kind of traits. There's also the Forest Mother of Bulgaria. They use the term Forest Mother. They don't give us the original name, just as Forest Mother in quotes. So yeah, it's that Baba thing, that creepy old lady's in the woods and she's gonna get you. It's tough though. I wish we could kind of see the evolution of it. When it started to really form the way it did, but this could be quite an old story. This guy Lomonov, when he's written this grammar book, he's equating the Slavic gods are as old as Rome, and so maybe there's a good chance that the story of Baba Yaga is similar to like how the Thousand One Nights stories are a collection. They're ancient stories that have evolved over time, and Baba Yaga definitely evolved. Mortars and pestles weren't always around. I mean, they've been around for quite a while though. But a hut with chicken
Oh,
legs.
it
What's up?
reminds me of our vampire episode, which is like year one of this
Yeah,
podcast.
episode 2 or 3, yeah.
Sure, where they were like riding around kitchen utensils instead of brooms. Do you
Sure.
remember?
Yeah,
Where they had a war with the vampires and the witches had a war and they were riding
yeah.
around.
Yeah, adapting for their time, the story, that's what they would ride on, yeah, for sure. So, and it could maybe in one Slavic tradition, it was specifically a broomstick, and then that's kind of like maybe when someone was looking up for that first thing that made it famous, that's the story that they referenced, or the woodcut, something like that.
Sure.
Um, and that's kind of it. That's Baba Yaga. She's incredibly old, incredibly ugly, and that's all. That's all you need to know. But she's really important, and that's why I was kind of interested. The John Wick films, the action films, they're really fun. They're really good. They have a really cool like their own sort of like universe, their own story. Especially the second and third ones really kind of kick that off. The first one's great though, and the main character John Wick, played by Keanu Reeves, he is like of Russian origin. I think his Jordani is his name, and he like changed it to John Wick later. But he's an assassin in this interesting world, and he's so effective, and he gets out, and then he has to kind of get back in, um, and he gets back in the first film because this Russian guy's son, like this Russian gangster's son, who's just too, full of himself, ends up screwing with John Wick without realizing it. And the dad, he calls him, he says like, this is Baba Yaga, this is who you have to be afraid of, and like they're freaking out and stuff like that. And I think he even says verbatim in the film like he's the boogeyman, and that's what they're using here. Because when I remember when I read into the Baba Yaga, I even like, you think the word Baba, I even knew babushka was like grandmother. I just knew that off the top of my head for some reason. So I heard that, and it has like a feminine kind of like name to it. So it's kind of weird to think of menacing of bearded Keanu Reeves with a gun as a Baba, but it is specifically Baba
Well, but
Yaga.
you don't know he's coming because he's
That's
an
true.
assassin,
Right.
and you did murder his puppy. So
Correct. But that's so Baba Yaga, just sort of the same way as any Jack would be in 18th century England, was a equivalent of boogeyman. So once going through the years, I don't know how commonly it would have been used in like 1800s Russia or whatever in a more like urban city, but yeah, Baba Yaga was and is now synonymous with like a boogeyman name now, and that's where it kind of comes in for Keanu Reeves. I'd love to. I need to look into it more. I'm curious as to why they use that specifically, but it was a good idea. I think it was cool. It has a fun sound to it. But it's featured in many other things too, and has inspired many other things. The Witcher series, which is heavily based on Slavic folklore, heavily based on Slavic folklore, has really brought a lot of it to the top. Probably helped get Baba Yaga to the top too. Volith Mare is the name of like the Baba Yaga creature, but she literally has like the chicken hut legs, and I think that means Death Mother, or Death Woman, or something like that.
or Death Horse.
And or it's not mare, it's Meir, Meir. But
Okay.
good check. So yeah, but and very very similar like characteristics. I think bone fence and stuff like that too. What blew my mind, and if you're a Dragon Ball or Dragon Ball Z fan, there is fortune teller Baba, who's really important in Dragon Ball when Goku was a kid, but makes a few cameos in Dragon Ball Z and even Dragon Ball Super, the newer show and stuff. She's this witch who's a fortune teller, and she's kind of like a con artist, but she's magical. She has a little crystal ball and stuff, very very westerny, like stuff, and featured, Akira Toriyama, the creator, he loved to feature that sort of stuff. Like the original Dragon Ball featured like the Red Ribbon Army. It was like all communist Russian base. Like it was it was interesting. But yeah, there's this character, fortune teller Baba, is based on Baba Yaga. Like looks ugly witch, pointy hat, the witch hat. It's wild. Another Japanese work, Spirited Away by Hayao Miyazaki, the Studio Ghibli film, and Howl's Moving Castle also take a lot from that too. Specifically, the Moving Castle has like I don't know if it has chicken legs, but it's more like steampunky. But they have like a chicken look, if I remember, or they have that like same way that they bend backwards like an ostrich, which isn't a chicken leg anyway. But yeah, so Baba Yaga, that witch identity, whether specifically Baba Yaga by name, helped inspire these Japanese pieces of works, and fortune teller Baba, quite literally called Baba. So I thought that was great. Yeah, so that really surprised me to see. There's been some good movies lately, or I don't want to say good, I don't know. There's been some movies lately, like there's been a few horror movies that have come out. She's a playable character in the MOBA Smite, the very popular MOBA Smite, which has a lot of folklore and myth in it.
Wait,
Zeus, all that.
For me who doesn't know and should know, what is MOBA?
If you know, then you'll just go, yeah, okay, I'm MOBA, and then if you don't waste your life. Don't waste brain cells.
Is it multiplayer, online,
battle action, massive online
arena,
battle action?
No action. Okay,
arena. Yeah, maybe it's arena.
Battle arena.
See, okay. I don't even know. I don't want to dedicate any more brain space to something I don't play. But Smite is it's a MOBA that's very popular. It's free to play, and it features tons of gods and myths and legends, and it also has like things with like he did Avatar: The Last Airbender, the Nickelodeon show, like was in. So like you get a Baba Yaga and Zeus and Ong from that show. Like it's wild, it's crazy, it's cool. But and she's been featured in a lot of games. I mentioned a Sierra game called Quest for Glory from 1989, a PC game, like old school DOS style, had it. Yeah, it's cool. It's unfortunate that we don't have any like specific references that are older than like the grammar book, really, but she's been very important in the culture, word of mouth, for centuries, and hopefully one day we might be able to find some evidence that could help show a little bit more of how old the story of Baba Yaga is. But she certainly is, and now today in pop culture she's incredibly important and has been uplifting all these stories. So it's cool to see.
With the Hansel and Gretel that we did, I remember we did Hansel and Gretel because I couldn't find a whole lot on Baba Yaga at first.
Yeah. That was a fun episode still, though.
Yeah, so I'm wondering because that was before the Baba Yaga stuff too, right?
Like before us, like
No, I'm
in pop
wondering
culture.
if yeah, like
Oh,
culturally, where is in the timeline?
yeah. Let me hold on. I'll even I have Google Docs open. I'll pull up my that so I pulled up my notes from the Hansel and Gretel
Sure.
episode, which you can listen to. I probably named it something hilarious, but I think it has Hansel and Gretel in its name. It's German in origin, so we're not quite in the Slavic area. So that's important to note. Folklorist Jack Zipes believes the tale emerged in the late Middle Ages Germany between 1250 to 1500. Shortly after the period, variants began to appear around 1590. It could be.
Well, the
They
tells are
believe
completely similar. Like even there was one
the
where
motive. Yeah.
yeah, where they were tricking the witch to get into the oven
Hmm.
so she would perish instead of the little girl.
Yeah.
And the little girl was saving the boy. It was the same tale. It
The
was the same fairy
Romanian
tale.
one, or the bird one. Yes, I remember that. I remember that one. Yeah, I think it was
So it
Romanian.
was Hansel and Gretel at that point. And there was a wicked stepmother and the
Yes,
father who
just like
was
change a couple things. Yeah,
right.
yeah, I do remember us talking about that. Yeah,
So I'm
yeah.
wondering
This
if it
one,
kind of like went through culture that way and then
it could
became
have. I
Baba
mean,
Yaga or maybe the
the
opposite
land
even.
bridge is very uh
Wasn't
small.
Western Germany like right there?
Yeah, it would be. It wouldn't be unheard of for moving peoples to communicate those stories and have. I mean, and that's you know, a lot of the gods are similar. Thor, Perun, like there are these culture bleedings that happen for sure.
Yeah, Odin,
So
Woden.
yeah, so it wouldn't be that like to have that old lady witch, for sure. I guess it's interesting though that like, I don't the witch's name isn't Baba necessarily. I wonder what the witch's name would have been in the original Hansel and Gretel.
This is
Mhm.
interesting. This is a movie, but there are three witches in um Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunters.
Hexa. Hexa is what they
Hexa.
use for witch. That's we've talked about that too.
Okay.
So okay. So here I'll cut a little bit, make that a little nicer. Yeah. So in the German, hexa is the word that they use for witch, which we've definitely. I can't remember what episode I mentioned this and I talked about that, like a hex, a curse. So, so Baba wouldn't have been the word, but hexa was. I wonder what like the etymology of hex. I think it is connected to hag. Even it's all about ugly ladies, right? That's what
Pretty
it's all
much. Yeah.
about. Hex, hexen, hexa, Pennsylvanian German, hexa, hex, six, having six. Oh, comes from Greek. Hexa, hexagon.
Oh, I didn't even think about that, but
What?
okay.
Dang. Well, all right. So Baba and the German Hexa and the Hans and Gretel. I love the train of thought and the story, the tale of like an evil old lady is absolutely the common denominator here. I was curious if the names were going to be because
An evil lady in the woods with a weird house, and she also eats
yes,
children.
yeah, that's definitely it. But yeah, Hexa is what they use, and that's from Greek six. That's really cool, actually. I didn't mention that in whatever episode we talked about hexing and hexes and the witch, which it might have been this one. Who knows? It was so long ago, but that what a great story. But that's Baba Yaga. Many of you probably have heard her from like things like John Wick, Witcher series, of Oathmare. But it really cool, very old. Not a whole bunch of old resources. The oldest thing we've got is from 1755. It's a grammar book, but the grammar book talked about her alongside all these other old Slavic myth and folklore. So she's super important to that
Are
area.
those wood carvings not from earlier times?
No, 17th and
Okay.
18th century. Yeah. So right around the same time. Is when they
Yeah,
would have
because
been.
most wood cuttings are like 15 or 1600s, which would be the
Yeah.
14th, 15th century. No,
If you say
16, 17th.
16 or if you say the 15th century, you mean the 1400s. But if you say the
Okay, yeah.
1600s,
So
yeah.
most of them are from like the 14 or 1500s. Yeah.
No, I'm saying 1600s, 1700s, or
Oh, okay, okay.
I'm saying 17 and 1800s. So I mean the 18th and 19th centuries.
Okay, cool. Yeah,
Yeah,
I,
sorry.
I just got confused for a second. But no, I
I
was saying like
know. Yeah.
wood cuttings are like usually older. They're usually from like the 1500s when
Yeah.
I see them.
See, but the old dudes in Slavic country, they got them hand me down from the German guy because they're like, we're writing books, y'all. Here, have these wood blocks. We don't need them anymore. And they're like, here comes Baba Yaga. But yeah. Cammy, I'm glad we finally got to do this. We've had this on our list for like the podcast
Ages.
inception. Yeah. So that was fun to tackle this subject. Let us know what you think about Baba Yaga and its importance to you. Remember Mythstorie with an IE. Watch us on YouTube, listen to us. We have another witch coming up soon, I think. We'll see how this next episode goes right before Christmas. The year's almost done. Cammy, do you have anything else you want to add? Any Baba topics to Baba mention?
Baba Yaga. Yeah. I don't really know as much about her, I think, other than like the John Wick reference. I know there was also a Tomb Raider game that we just found this out, but it was Rise of Tomb Raider, and there was like an expansion where you actually went to a witch's hut in the woods, and it was Baba Yaga.
Yeah. I think it's tough because like that could be such a blanket topic now, and it's just if you have like an evil old lady, that kind of qualifies enough to be Baba Yaga, so it's like, what does it kind of mean? Like, what I wonder, was Shakespeare inspired by something like by a direct reference to something like Baba Yaga in something that he might have read about people of this area or something like that, so it's tough to think about, but it opens up a lot, and it's really interesting. But Baba Yaga for sure is important, and the ever since the late 18th century, she has become. She was mentioned, her name in that grammar book. She was called Yaga Baba, like, and Yaga wasn't with a Y, it was with an I, so it was like Yaga, not Yaga. But Yaga Baba was the name. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I've seen it spelled with a J or a Y. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But I loved it. I'm glad we got to touch upon that. Kyle knew about it from The Witcher, and she thought it was really cool too. So a lot of people lately, it's been shooting up there. And Witcher is, if you like The Witcher books or series, I mean, I only really enjoy the TV show. I don't like I've tried listening to the books. I don't like them. I don't like the games even.
The games are terrible.
They're fine. They're just different. It's
There's
tough.
too much dialogue.
100%. It's
and the worst thing is, like, even if you sit there and listen to dialogue, you still don't know what you're doing.
Right. Some people love them, and they're totally fine. Don't have kids or have a busy life, and then you can enjoy them. But the show has been fantastic, and that has brought a lot of Slavic folklore to light, that deservedly so, because a lot of it's original, a lot of it's unique, and not just like copy and pasting from other cultures and stuff like that. So, and it covers a huge geographical area too, for cultures and things like that. So that's it, Cammy. That's all I got. Cool. All right. Well, everyone, if you got a topic for us for next year, because that's what we're thinking of now, let us know. Mythstorie with an IE at Gmail. Hit us up on our Facebook group. All that good stuff. Yeah?
Yeah.
All right. Yaga?
Yaga.
All right, everyone. Well, we will talk to you next time.
Oh.